Welcome to the Mystic Media channel. I am your host, Rubina Rastaban, aka the Realist Astrologer, and this video is about Anthony Bourdain and his death. Now, Anthony Bourdain was born on June 25th, 1956, and that birth number of 25 uh, can leave one open to victimization, deception, and also trickery if the person is not being very discriminating at all times. That 25 breaks down to 7, and 7 vibrates to the energy of Neptune. So that points to his life of battling addiction. He was a heroin addict for many years. His life path number is 7, which echoes his birth number, and 7 basically echoes the themes of addiction, victimization, deception, a life that is full of sorrowful circumstances, but it also points to his career in Hollywood. Now, I did a tarot reading questioning whether his death was suicide or was he murdered, because I'm very suspicious of the official news story. And being as though that I'm a natural conspiracy theorist, I always have to look deeper into situations like this, when especially when it's ruled as suicide so quickly, because it seems like there wasn't even any investigation that took place before it was ruled a suicide. So automatically my eyebrows were raised when I found out that he died and they ruled it a suicide. So I did a 4 card reading pertaining to this situation. And the 4 card reading spread is one of my favorites, and it breaks down as follows. So the first card deals with the situation at hand. The second card deals with the challenge. The third card deals with the advice. And the fourth card deals with the outcome. So I'm not going to get into the cards right now. I'm going to get into his chart, and then I'm going to discuss the cards that I pulled in relation to his death. Now, Anthony Bourdain's sun is at the 4th degree of Cancer. That's the only planet he has in Cancer, and that points to him being a cook. Also, his sun is conjoined to Venus, and that means that he's very relationship oriented. He basically needs a woman to feel whole. He has been married before, but he was divorced, and he had a girlfriend at the time of his death. Her name is Asia Argento, and she's one of the suspect people in this whole situation, in my opinion. So I'm going to get into that a little deeper in a minute. But his Venus being at the 28th degree of Gemini points to him being too trusting at times in relationships and in partnerships. So this could be personal relationships such as a marriage or a committed relationship, but also when it comes to business partnerships. That Venus in Gemini also points to him being in the media. And he also has Mercury in Gemini and his South Node in Gemini. His Mercury is conjoined to his South Node, which means that his mouth can get him into trouble in this lifetime. It basically means that oftentimes he's not discriminating with respect to what he says. And this goes back to his birth number of 25, where I said that he has to be very discriminating when dealing with others. That Mercury conjoined to the South Node in Gemini can point to him getting caught up in a media scandal, in some type of situation involving the media. And the interesting thing about Anthony Bourdain, he was posting some controversial tweets about Harvey Weinstein, who is who allegedly raped his girlfriend Asia Argento, according to her. So Anthony Bourdain was posting tweets about Harvey Weinstein and also Hillary Clinton, because the interesting thing was, um, during Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, Harvey Weinstein donated a large amount of funds to her. So when the scandal came out about Harvey Weinstein allegedly sexually abusing these women or violating these women sexually, of course, she had to answer to why she accepted campaign donations from Weinstein. So she gave this answer, this response during some type of interview. And basically, she was saying that she didn't know that he was like that. And basically, Anthony Bourdain called her out in a series of tweets. He was also speaking out about Trump, and he was comparing Trump to Weinstein as well. So he was basically being very controversial with some of his tweets, and he was making it known that he was basically had a vendetta against Weinstein because his girlfriend, Asia Argento, was one of his victims, allegedly. Now, his Mercury is, like I said, conjoined to the South Node. That's bad enough as it is. But it's also in sesame square to Neptune, and that can deal with him exposing secrets or being slandered by the media. Slandered in perhaps maybe his death was not caused by suicide. Maybe it was actually foul play, and that definitely would be slander. Also, his Venus is retrograde, so, in addition to him being too trusting, this can deal with women coming with a hidden agenda or a dual agenda, especially because Venus is in Gemini. And this also points to basically he can have a hidden agenda or a dual agenda when it deals with him being in relationships. Also, his Venus is in quincunx to Saturn, and that can point to death at the hands of an enemy because his Saturn's in Scorpio. So death at the hands of an enemy, but it could also be facilitated by a woman, or it could be ordered by a woman. Another interesting thing about his Venus is that it is conjoined to the fixed star Betelgeuse. And if you've seen a couple of other of my videos where I talked about Betelgeuse, I always say just think back to the movie Beetlejuice featuring Michael Keaton, where he portrayed this very wicked, demonic character that was just bent upon wreaking havoc upon anybody that summoned him. So Beetlejuice can bring fortune and fame, which Anthony Bourdain definitely had, but it can bring situations that deal with danger, violence, and calamities. So when it's conjoined to Venus, you have to add women into the mix and also partnerships, his relationships. Venus is conjoined to Polaris, which is another fixed star, and that can bring sickness. So that can point to his heroin addiction, but it can also bring trouble, loss, affliction, and it can deal with spiritual powers. So when Venus is taken into consideration with Polaris, this can deal with him attracting women that are into witchcraft, spell casting, what have you. And his girlfriend, Asia Argento, she's definitely that type. I believe she's a self-proclaimed witch. If you go to her Instagram page, she has a lot of images where she looks very like she's on the dark side, that she's all witchy and mystical and all that type of stuff. And she has like this tough girl persona. And I recognized her by that movie Marie Antoinette, which I love. Kirsten Dunst is in it, and in that movie, Asia Argento plays Madame Duvari or something like that, but she plays his harlot in the movie. And I think that characterizes her pretty well. Now, the interesting thing about Asia Argento is her father is Dario Argento, which is a director and producer of horror films. One horror film in particular is one of my favorites because I'm a horror movie buff. It's called Suspiria. This movie was made in the 70s. And in this movie, it's about a ballet school that actually is a school run by witches. And basically, they worship the devil and all that type of stuff. So, a lot of deaths happen, sacrifices happen at this school. So, I just thought that was very interesting, the connection that Anthony Bourdain has with the Argentos. Also, what's interesting is Anthony Bourdain's sun runs parallel to Hamal. Hamal can indicate a situation that deals with hanging. But, hanging could be by suicide, but it could also be at the hands of someone, an enemy. Hamal also breeds violence, cruelty, and brutality. Anthony Bourdain's sun ran parallel to Shiva, which is an asteroid that brings destruction. So this can be self-destruction, but it can also be destruction at the hands of another. And this can deal with him being on a path to destruction. His Venus runs parallel to Psyche. And this is interesting because Psyche is an asteroid that is an indicator for serious trauma and abuse. It can also be an indicator for mind control. And with Venus running parallel to Psyche, Venus can deal with the women that is in his life, the woman that he's with. It could deal with his partner, business partnerships, what have you. So that's very interesting alone. And then let me see what else he has. He has Pluto running parallel to Tisiphone. And Tisiphone is an asteroid that deals with a harsh punishment, or where you're being judged very harshly. So when Pluto is brought into the mix, that can deal with punishment via death. His Uranus is conjoined to the asteroid Arachne, and that can point to a web of deceit or drama that involves friends and associates, or where he's getting caught up in a web of deceit at the hands of a friend, associate, what have you. And his Uranus is at the 0 degree of Leo. Leo deals with entertainment. Leo also deals with love and romance. So this can also point to him getting caught up as a result of being in love with someone, and perhaps his lover's associates and friends. His Saturn is in Scorpio, like I said, and it's in square to Jupiter and Pluto in Leo. And that right there can produce a situation where a person suffers death at the hands of a group of people. So that can be death via a conspiracy. So people conspiring to bring about your death. So I feel like that's very interesting too. And that is one of the aspects, in my opinion, that kind of rules out the whole suicide. Let me see what else. Now I do believe I don't know his birth time, but I think Anthony Bourdain may be a Sagittarius rising because he is very tall. He's 6'4". And he traveled all around the world, and that was basically his claim to fame. Traveling around the world, you know, experimenting with different cuisines, tasting different foods, learning about different cultures and all that. So that's very much Sagittarius rising, also his height. And that would put his moon in Aquarius, because that would mean that he's born around 6 p.m. I have his birth time at 6:29. That's my speculation. And that would put his moon at the 3rd degree of Aquarius, which makes a lot of sense in my opinion, because he's very tall, 6'4", and Aquarius can produce height. And the moon in Aquarius, as opposed to Capricorn, because if he was born in the morning, his moon would be in Capricorn. But his profile in terms of his wife and also his girlfriend fits moon in Aquarius better, because moon in Aquarius can produce women that are very unique, eccentric, and his ex-wife and Asia Argento, the girlfriend he had when he died. But I think they had broken up um prior to his death, like recently before his death. So but that moon in Aquarius fits the women that he attracts more than the moon in Capricorn. So I'm siding with his moon being Aquarius. So let me see if I'm missing anything else that I wanted to mention. But so let me just get into this tarot reading. So also his moon in Aquarius is conjoined to Chiron in Aquarius, and that basically reinforces the theme about an eccentric wife, a wife that is unique. His ex-wife was an MMA fighter, or is an MMA fighter, and she does look kind of an androgynous, which is very moon in Aquarius. And also that Asia Argento, she's just a weird character, and that points to that moon conjoined to Chiron. And also she's broken because of what happened to her with Weinstein, allegedly. Now, the tarot reading, this is very telling, which is why I say the tarot reading for the end. So like I said, I did a 4-card spread about this situation. So my question was, did Anthony Bourdain commit suicide, or was he murdered? So the first card, dealing with the situation, I got the Page of Wands, and that can deal with the news report of his death, news report of his suicide, but it can also deal with me questioning what really occurred, but it can also deal with Anthony Bourdain's communication, his tweets leading up to his death. The challenge is the Fool, And that can deal with a person on travel. So if we're looking at it from Anthony Bourdain's perspective, that could deal with him being on travel because he died in Paris. But this can also deal with him being unaware of what's going on, him being caught off guard. Or you can also look at it as him being on a path to destruction, and also where he went out, he was talking out against some people in the media, like I said, Hillary Clinton and Weinstein, which is what you're really not supposed to do when you're in the media, when you're in the public eye like that, because as a lot of you guys already know, things are supposed to be kept on a hush hush. So that Fool card, you can look at it as not giving a fuck, excuse my French, but it can also be where someone is on the precipice of their own destruction. Now, the advice card is the High Priestess. So when I saw that card, I was like, oh, shoot, because that's a card of secrecy. It can also point to hidden enemies, and it can also point to a woman's involvement. It can also point to withdrawal. So, in defense of the whole suicide claim, the High Priestess could be a card where someone is dealing with some type of mental illness. They're not in their right mind. They're emotionally troubled, and they choose to withdraw from society or the world. But when it comes to tarot reading, you also have to take the other surrounding cards into consideration. And that's what I had to do, as well as look at his chart to really make my final determination. So again, that High Priestess is what can make this reading kind of iffy. Now, High Priestess on the negative end can produce a cruel female, but it can also produce someone that is self-destructive. So, the real answer, in my opinion, is the last card. The fourth card, which is the outcome, is the Five of Swords. And the Five of Swords card usually involves other people. It's usually not dealing with just you yourself. So that Five of Swords can be a card of being struck down. It could be a card of betrayal. It could be a card of trickery, backstabbing, where you're victimized. Also, where there is a smear campaign going on, and that smear campaign could be reports that he committed suicide as opposed to being a victim of foul play. So, let me know what you think in the comments section. I feel like this tarot reading is basically the nail in the coffin, and it has caused me to determine that no, he did not commit suicide. He was murdered at the hands of a group of people that had it out for him. And that Saturn square Jupiter and Pluto in his chart, plus his Mars and Sesame square to Neptune, his Mercury conjoined to his South Node in Gemini, says a lot about that. And also his Venus being afflicted by those fixed stars and the asteroid Psyche. So, again, let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think that he committed suicide, or do you think that he was murdered? Maybe time will tell. Maybe some more information will come out at a later date. But if you would like a reading, just go to my website at rabina.com. Stay tuned for more videos. Peace and many blessings.